And hey guys, my name's Greg Smith. I don't have a name for this show yet, but it's coming. So maybe after a couple weeks, I get a feel for exactly what it is I'm trying to tell you. Maybe I come up with a title. But for now, it's just me, and I'm here to talk about something important. So a few years ago, I had a great job with a great company with an upward trajectory for the company, for myself. It was solid. It was respectable. It's exactly the kind of job you're supposed to be grateful for. And I was. It's the kind of job you're supposed to feel really good about. But I got to a point where I was empty in that job, which I'm sure many of you can relate to. I didn't actually know what I wanted. I just knew that something was off. I had 2 kids. I just turned 39. Yeah, 39. Had a mortgage. And I was convinced that it was probably too late to make the change that I felt I needed in my heart. But I was wrong. And I want to be clear with you about something. I'm not on the other side of this. I'm still in it. I'm probably a few years further down the road though than I was then. I know for a fact I am. And I still remember exactly where I was the moment that I made the decision that I was going to change something. So I know what it felt like to be standing in your shoes in a place where maybe you haven't even really seriously considered making a change. That's the whole reason that I'm doing this now and not waiting 20 years from now to talk about this, because it's fresh. I don't want to forget anything. I want to share this information. I think it's important. So every week I'm going to come on here. I'm going to talk to you about what I'm learning, what I'm doing, what it's costing me, what's actually helped, how I'm kind of getting through things, what I'm actively focused on, the good, the bad, the ugly, just 30 minutes each week. And hopefully it helps you guys. If you already know what you're all about or what you're after, and you don't really have this deep conviction for a major change, then congrats. Seriously, that's a big deal. It's wonderful. Hopefully you never arrive at this point. But if you do, this information will always be here for you. Or if you know of someone who's going through this, maybe you pass this along to them. But if you're going through this yourself right now, just like I did, just like I am, or am still in the midst of, and you feel this tugging inside for a change of career, a change of direction, something you may not even, you just know you're in need of some type of change, and maybe you're working on identifying what that is, then you're in the right place. Last week, I told you about leaving, the moment where I left that job. I was empty. I needed a change. And I arrived at the point where I was ready to, as they say, burn the bridges. This week, I'm going to talk a little bit more about the part right before that, figuring out what was actually wrong. That took me a whole lot longer than the decision that I arrived at, which was to leave. So I knew something was wrong. There was a numbness that was just growing for probably a couple of years. I couldn't name it though. Something's off. Even when there's no evidence to really point directly at it, you just know when there's an aching inside for fulfillment that just isn't taking place. And it was strange because I had a job where nothing was wrong, which really makes it even harder to leave than it being a bad job. Like I said, it was a solid job, working with great people, really right in my wheelhouse of my abilities. But I kept kind of tormenting myself. Oh, you should be grateful for this. You should be grateful. And I've always kind of prided myself for being able to have perspective on things like that. So I kind of beat myself up over this lack of gratefulness for this job that provided all I needed for my family. And in the struggle, in the midst of that struggle that I was having internally, I just knew that I felt like there was so much that I was leaving on the table. There was so much more that I could do that I wasn't doing. I wasn't being challenged. I wasn't feeling like I was being stretched. And I could start to do my job on autopilot. And I didn't like that. I felt like the years were just kind of going by. And I just woke up and did something similar the very next day. And then the next day. And I was doing a good job. Doing great. But I needed something different. That numbness really started showing up all over the place. I was struggling to figure out what it was that I enjoyed. What did I like? I was really kind of questioning all these things about who I was when I was a kid. What did I ever really enjoy? Why am I so introspective on this topic? What am I searching for? So in that very search, recognizing that search taking place, that I was grasping for something, that was an alert. That alerted me that, hey, there's something missing here. So at first, what happened was I really tried to kind of bury that feeling. How did I bury it? I didn't really do unhealthy things. Like I'm not a big drinker. I don't do anything outside of having some drinks. But what I did is I actually found some great outdoor activities, some things that I was doing a lot of, and I was really, really loving those things. And I just longed for the Sunday mornings. I was playing soccer a lot with a big group of guys and I found that it was my complete release. It was the best part of my entire week. Still do it actually. But the moment I was done playing on Sundays, my mind clicked back to this numbness. And that was interesting to me because the exercise and the activity with all of the guys playing soccer Sunday morning was such an escape. And I was lost in being fully present there. The moment it was over, all this dread, not of what I needed to do for work, but the dread of, I guess, the boredom or numbness that it was creating just flooded back. And I knew I couldn't live like that anymore. I just assumed it was, maybe I'm not getting paid enough. Maybe it's the job. I used to say, I'm pigeonholed here. I don't see people enough. I'm working from home too much. And then, of course, I pivoted to another opportunity within the same industry, which is kind of where I eventually quit and made my jump, made my leap. And of course, that was the wrong answer. I did that entirely for money. But I look at that job, the one that I took in the same industry, because of its compensation and because it was a small company, nimble company, sounded great, like the guy I was going to work with. I look back now and I think that's such a blessing. Because had that job not been as difficult as it was for me to reckon with, not difficulty, but just value misalignment, just some things that took place, I don't think I would have taken the leap. So I'm very grateful for that. So if I could have done something different, I probably would have tried to have the courage to leave my initial job that was lacking challenge. Should have recognized that and gone after something before it got to a point that really forced me to. That's the only thing I'd do different. Probably cost me a couple of years, but I will tell you, it gave me the perspective I needed to understand what it was going to take to get through this and to understand why it was important. So what actually did work for me? What got me to the point where I was going to make the move? And I'll tell you, there's the biggest one for me. The questions that I asked myself that really moved me, the biggest one was, what are you going to be proud of when you're older? And what would you want to tell your boys, my young boys, about a similar situation in the future if they were to go through it? And that really got me over the edge. I wanted more than anything to be able to get on the other side of this leap, this free fall with no parachute, trying to build the plane on the way down. I wanted to be able to get through this, to be able to tell my boys and help them and guide them through it if they were ever in a situation in the future. And you can only do that if you've done it yourself. So I wanted to have that under my belt. And that was a major motivator for me. Plus, I wanted more out of my life. I wanted more for myself and my family. And I just wanted to feel alive in my work. Because we spend so much time in our work that when you're not fulfilled and doing things that are meaningful to you in a day in your work, it takes up such a huge chunk of your life that it leaves a gaping hole. I can't just work for a wage. I'm lucky to say that. I'm very fortunate. I realize that. But I need to do something that's impactful, something that's fulfilling, beyond just taking care of my family. I need to feel like I'm making a difference in some area. And that was, but asking myself what I would tell my own son in such a situation was a big motivator. And then asking myself, how would I feel about telling my boys how to handle this in the future if I didn't have the courage to do it myself? Again, that was massive for me. I was lucky I have a father-in-law who I can talk to about things like this. I didn't talk a whole lot about it to people. I had a friend that I shared a bit of information on, but if I could do it again, I'd talk to people beyond just my wife. You know, my wife helped me through it more than anyone else. I couldn't have done it without her. But there got to be a point where it felt like I was offloading too much on her, and it was affecting her. She was struggling with just seeing me kind of go through this difficulty, and I could tell it was weighing on her. So I got to a point where I recognized that, hey, my wife is, at the time I didn't think as much of it, but now I look back and realize that, hey, your spouse is the most important person in helping you get through something like this. But there does come a point where you need outsiders to help you through this. And I will tell you this, something I'm forgetting. I saw a therapist, an outstanding therapist who really, really helped me through the thoughts that were maybe getting in my way. I'm a person that really, really likes to see step by step how things are going to happen, but you can't do that. So I had to let go of the way I thought this was going to play out. And I still struggle with that to this day. You can't understand the understandable. You don't know how the future is going to just unfold. All you can do is see the forest, and you're cutting your way through the forest to figure out what's there on the other side. And you're trying to enjoy it along the way. I'm not trying, I am. But it takes you a while to get to the point where you get used to just hacking through the forest, cutting your own path. That's tough. And it's challenging. It was probably the hardest thing I've ever done, because I realized in this process that I crave certainty, and uncertainty is my biggest fear. It was. And having faith through the uncertainty has been the greatest lesson that I've learned. I have recognized that there comes a point where you just have to let go. I call it squeezing the bird. You hold this little bird in your hand, and if you just squeeze it too tight, you'll kill it. But you have to let go, and you have to kind of ride the wave of life and just pick a direction and go. And it usually works out. So this process for me, gosh, all the books, just getting to a place where I could kind of get comfortable with what I was doing probably took me a solid 9 months. I was just working through it, trying to find opportunities, making things work, changing my mindset from one of, hey, I'm going to wake up and this is what I'm going to do every day because this is what is expected of me in this role, to now, in my case, it's just wide open, and it's up to me to go figure out what I'm going to do in every single moment. Not that I didn't have to do that in my previous roles, but there were lanes, and I knew I could stay within this lane and go achieve what I needed to within this construct. Now I'm in a place where I go, okay, now what? And that comes with a ton of uncertainty. But over time, that wide open uncertainty has gotten narrower and narrower. And over time, as your path becomes clear, you get more and more comfortable in what you're doing. And you have more and more faith that you're going in the right direction. And that's huge. That's where you're trying to get. That's where I've arrived over the past year and a half, probably, where even when things are slowing down and things look like, man, what's going on? I just keep the faith, stay on course, do what I need to do, and know that my work is valuable and I help others solve problems, and opportunities arise as a result of the work that I've done. So I'm still working on that, dealing with moments of when things get a little quiet or slow, but the process is the process, and you will come out on the other side a very changed person. And for you, it may be that you're just rolling right into another job and another, in a similar line of work, or something changes, but you find a more concrete path day to day. For me, I was determined to do what I wanted to do on my own, kind of as a free agent, which is what I am. I'm a consultant, and that's beautiful and wonderful in so many areas, but it's also difficult and scary for a lot of other reasons as you're trying to grow your business. Once I figured out why and what I wanted in terms of my change, I had always known what it was that I wanted to pursue, but we moved a lot. And it sounds like an excuse, but we moved every couple of years due to my wife's job. She had a crazy job in an industry that constantly required us to move. And every time we moved, we started over. So the things that I wanted to do, I always kind of waited till we got to the place where I said, you know what, I think we're going to be here a long time. And it never felt like that. So I'm at fault for probably not rooting in earlier. But it was a cycle that just created I need to do what I need to do to be able to maintain my job whenever we move again. So I was not forced. I accepted that situation and did not feel for a very long time that I needed to be in pursuit of something that was more fulfilling, because stability through all these moves was the most important thing. And when we stopped moving and we rooted into one place, that's when I craved this change. When we were in this place for probably our sixth, seventh year, it'd never been like that. We'd never stayed in a place more than 2.5 years. I knew I needed something different. So when that came about inside of me and I searched inside for what it was, I always had this itch that I began to start pursuing. And I wanted more and more of it. Started doing some stuff on the side in this area, and it lit me up. And more than anything, I found myself working with a group of like-minded people in a way that I never had before. Interacting with people that were probably more my age and in the same stage of life with as me. And we kind of saw each other more as peers rather than a hierarchical system that I had been operating inside of for the longest time, which is no big deal. Listen, I don't have a problem with that. But when you then experience this world of horizontal landscape where everyone's just working together for common projects, I just knew I wanted more and more of that. And when I found that, I read and read and read up on the industry, and it scared me. Hey, I'm just going to be the low man on the totem pole wherever I plug in. But I knew what it was. I knew that the work that I was in pursuit of was connecting with my soul. And for me, I may have said this on the previous podcast, but something that really lights me up was experience of an environment. I just love experiencing a new place. And I love the idea of creating things and having a say in the development of a space to suit my interest and make me feel a certain way had a very big impact on me. And it felt like it resonated so strongly with me that I knew that what I was working in, which was real estate development, was the right path. I knew that tug in me for all those years was, in fact, a tug in this direction that was real and accurate. And it wasn't just hey, maybe you should go try this. It was no, there is a connection to building things, and particularly in my city, creating things that will stand the test of time, kind of add to the fabric of this great historic city. Preserving it, adding more to it, kind of for the next generation, doing work that stood the test of time and was an adder to the city and not a detractor, and was more than just being about making a dollar. I knew that was what I want. And that made me know with certainty, that made me feel more convicted in my pursuit, even though in the moment I felt like an idiot. Was I stupid to trust myself? Was I naive to think this is the right direction? Is this just me trying to bail on something because I don't know. All these questions that came up were a result of me really asking myself, do I want to pursue this new thing for the right reason? And what I concluded was, yes, I did. Because I had been contemplating it for so many years. I hadn't contemplated it seriously, but it had been there in the background. So once I named that and I knew this was the direction I wanted to go, and I was ready to take that step. I wasn't fully ready to just get going, but it gave me the ability to be prepared, to have the thoughts that I needed to motivate myself and to speak to others to help me with my motivation of, okay, I'm going to do this. And that was huge. So, but there's still a gap between knowing and then taking that action. And I would tell anyone who is stuck in that spot where you think you know that you want to make a change, but you need to make certain that what your desire to change is for before you act. I would say to them, just listen to the tug inside of you. What is the thing that has been tugging at you for so long that has just become a routine sound, this routine occurrence inside of you that is just nagging at you? Because there's something there. Forget about what it means for income at the moment. Forget about how hard it's going to be. Just let yourself go to that spot and think, okay, what if I did? What if I did pursue this? You may say, I don't know how in the world I'd make any money doing that. No way can I make a transition. That would be so irresponsible. Maybe so. But that's your mindset. That's your understanding of that new job or that new career direction that may be far more narrow than you realize, because you may see it through a lens like this. And when in reality, that world is far bigger than you're giving it credit for because of your lack of exposure to it. So give yourself the permission to go in pursuit of that before you just say, hey, I'm done. Just go dig into it. Go meet people. Go talk to folks. Get out, talk to people, experience what it is they're doing day to day. People want to work with good people. If you're a good person and you genuinely approach people with an earnestness and a excitement to possibly help them in what they're doing, or with an energy that they want to be around, you never know what can happen. You never know what doors could be open. So the biggest advice I would give someone in that moment is, what is it that's nagging at you? Get clear on that. What are the things you miss in your life that you would love to have in it day to day, that you could build a career around? Just give yourself a chance to think about that. What are the unique things that you feel that you could tie to a job in whatever area? It may not naturally just come to you, but if you really, even if it's hard to kind of come up with an example, but the feeling that you want to derive from something may be achieved in a way that you'd never thought. So just give yourself a chance to brainstorm on where you might find that feeling, because that's what you're after. You're actually after a feeling. That fulfillment comes from that feeling inside that connects with what you need. It's not the job. It's not the role. It's what you're doing in that role. It's how you're interacting with these people. It's how you're presenting value to the world in a way that connects with you and gives to others. So think about that. I hope I've given you some information here. I feel like maybe I've rambled a bit, but so be it. I'm trying to get this out. I'm new at this. But I'll tell you this, if you found this valuable in any way, I'll be a little more succinct and to the point in these future ones as I get the hang of this. But if you found this valuable in any way, would you please send this to someone who needs to hear it? I really want my message to get to the folks who need to hear it. For the people who are 35, 42, 50, who feel like they can't make a change because they're at this point too far, too advanced in their career, too old. They don't want to drop down to bottom of the totem pole again and start over and be the newbie in the room. Send this to those guys, girls, anyone who's in that spot, because life's too short. You only get one go at this. We might as well make it work. That's a bad way to put it. We might as well be doing something that we're happy doing, that we're fulfilled in. So send this to someone who needs to hear it. And I'll see you guys again next time.